Okay, good morning, everyone. So we're not going to try to keep you guys from lunch. We know we're the session before lunch. So my name is Kyle Brennan. I am the Research and Development Program Manager for the CPE for Ammunition and Energetics. Todd and I are here on behalf of the Portfolio Acquisition Executive for Agile Sustainment and Ammunition. So we're going to walk through a little bit about the organization, what the PAE is. I know General Gibbs talked about it a little bit earlier as well, but we're going to talk a little bit more about how that comes together, and then we'll go into our demand signals and what we're really looking for industry investment on. Next slide. So just to give everyone, I know we talked about the Army Transformation Initiative, just to talk a little bit about what the structure really looks like. So the Portfolio Acquisition Executive for Agile Sustainment and Ammunition encompasses 2 capability program executive offices, as well as a systems center lead. So each of the PAEs has a lab representative and a lab that is dedicated to supporting and coordinates the efforts across the other labs to provide a direct line up to the PAE in terms of priorities, in terms of support, and in terms of science and technology. So the System Center lead for PAE Agile Sustainment and Ammunition is DevCom Armament Center, which is located at Picatinny Arsenal in New Jersey. The 2 capability program executives, we have Ammunition and Energetics, which I represent, and Combat Logistics, which Todd is here to talk about. So each of those organizations has 4 project offices currently, as well as an integration office, which is where Todd and I work within the CPE structure. So again, just wanted to give a quick overview of kind of with this new structure and the 6+2 that we've heard today, kind of how that looks from a flow down from the Secretary of the Army all the way down to the project managers. Next slide. So across the 2 CPEs, we have Project Manager Close Combat Systems, which is looking at everything from lethal UAS payloads. They have grenades, autonomous breaching, which we've heard a lot about today already. We have Project Manager Combat Ammunition Systems as well, which is your indirect fire capabilities. Project Manager Maneuver Ammunition Systems, which has everything from your small caliber lethality, things going into next-gen squad weapon and things like that, all the way up to through the medium caliber suite of counter-UAS munitions and large caliber tank ammunition. And then finally, a unique aspect of where for CP Ammunition Energetics is the project lead for Joint Services, which manages the organic industrial base across the Army, looking at all the Army ammunition plants. You can see listed here, Holston, Iowa, Lake City, to name a few. And then moving into the CP for Combat Logistics, we have the Joint Tactical Wheeled Vehicles, the Project Manager for Transportation Systems, Project Manager for Force Projection, and the Project Manager for Expeditionary Energy and Sustainment Systems. So this just shows you the breadth of what the portfolio looks like and kind of the wide range of capabilities that are encompassed by the PAE. Next slide. So to get into a little bit more specifically about the Capability Program Executive for Ammunition and Energetics, the mission statement, we've heard overmatch being a key topic of conversation today. We want to develop, procure, and field lethal armaments and ammunition, providing overmatch capabilities to the joint warfighter and our allied partners. You've heard the phrase used today, we never want a fair fight. Providing those overmatch capabilities and lethality is a big part of what we do at the CPE. In no particular order, the priority areas that have been identified by our CPE, we have counter-UAS systems, lethal UAS payloads, organic and industrial base improvements, manufacturability, which is a key aspect for us, specifically with proximity fuses and as it relates to counter-UAS. Onshoring and scaling interceptors. We have those drone-to-drone interceptors that are proliferating now more across the battle space. And then 6.8 millimeter ammunition, which feeds into the next-gen squad weapon and kind of where we're going in terms of small caliber lethality. So to kind of tie it back a little bit to different areas that we've talked about and our focus areas within the USERPAC theater, you can see we have a number of different mission areas within the CPE that cover contested logistics, autonomous systems, command and control, and long-range fires. And these aren't all direct results of them. Some of them are enabled by these things. So for example, command and control enables a lot of what we're able to do from a munitions space and from a contested logistics space, looking at supply chain risk management. And the supply chain is a very big thing right now in terms of just trying to understand the entirety of it across each capability area. Next slide. So wanted to kind of bring this back to where can industry help us in terms of accelerating capability and complementing the portfolio that we have across the PAE and the CPE. So I'll start, and I know we've heard a few things about packaging and autonomy, innovative interfaces and packaging solutions to perform autonomous resupply. Obviously in USERPAC, that's a key area. We want to reduce the weight and cost of our packaging solutions and create those standardized interfaces that enable automation in those environments. Moving forward to kind of affordable and scalable lethality. So we have something that's been developed called the Common Lethality Integration Kit, which some of you may have heard of, as well as SUPI, which is the Small Universal Payload Interface. So we're looking for compatible lethality mechanisms with those two interfaces because it enables an any drone, any payload type of environment. Next thing is networked lethality for counter-UAS munitions. We want to, as we like to say, protect the protector. We have all these systems that are meant to protect our force. We need to protect those from UAS, and it's important that we provide deep magazines to soldiers to actually defend those systems and protect those systems as they go through their mission. And we do that looking for different ways to kind of create that integration. Dual purpose manufacturing. We heard a panel on dual purpose, on dual use. We're trying to work a lot with the Manufacturing Innovation Institutes, which is a key partner for us. It's a public-private partnership program, kind of getting private industry involved and helping our organic industrial base and our defense industrial base. And two different ways we can do that is through energetics producibility and manufacturability of counter-UAS components to get things at scale. Kind of continuing on through a couple more areas here on the artillery side of things. Again, going back to those common interfaces for modular and novel payload deliveries to be able to communicate and expel different payloads as needed. So we can kind of interchange different things and use that modular open system architecture, which we heard about this morning as well. And then lastly, kind of the low-cost seeker technologies. Obviously, there's a lot of seeker technologies out there. They're very expensive systems. If there's any way we can get after lower cost options, that is something that we're definitely very interested in contested environments. So that covers kind of the CP ammunition energetics, and I'll pass it off to Todd to talk about the combat logistics portfolio.
Perfect. Thanks, Kyle. Once again, Todd Richmond from CPE-CL. Contested logistics today, that might change in the future, but next slide. So as you can see from that first chart, well, there'll be a test of the 283 programs that we have and 438 that ammo has. So But just to let you know, there's quite a few different pieces of equipment that we kind of oversee. And really, our mission, as you can read it there, is really to deploy and support the warfighter at the point of need in joint force operations in the contested logistics kind of supply chain management piece of the puzzle. A better boot, if you will, for the warfighter. Some of the current priorities you can see there, and what we did is try to align to the levels of effort that our user community is aligning to enable strategic development throughout the joint force, inter-theater lift, obviously supply operations with both equipment and personnel, fuel and batteries, right, in that area, and then maintenance operations. We have a heavily contingent on maintaining the warfighter and the piece of equipment they have. One of our program offices has quite a bit of maintenance equipment in that arena. And we don't have a lot of MASH casualty treatment today, but we do more ambulance recovery and repair. So that's kind of the other piece of that. As far as a USERPAC focus, as we just talked a little bit about contested logistics, right, reducing that footprint, increasing mobility in our current vehicles today, either through extended range, through aerial delivery, through J-pads and the like, to expand that to 250 nautical miles versus where we're at today. And then as we talked and heard earlier from General Gibbs, obviously autonomy is a big push, and really what we'll talk about is how we make our current legacy systems more digitally compliant. So that's another area and opportunity. And then just really integrating those comm systems and or those supply systems so that the commander on the battlefield has that visibility into the NGC2 system to be able to communicate back on what's ready, what's available for the warfighter. And then that gets back to some predictive logistics as well, meaning what's the next fight, what's the next position, what's our equipment at, into the whole big NGC2, not only power and energy, but supply as well. And then getting back to the warfighter so you know what's maintenance and what needs to be maintained and when. And battle damage usage, fuel efficiency, and then power and energy as well. Next slide, please. So this should be focused, yep, here we go. So one of the areas we also do is we do riverine and bridging applications too, not only semi-permanent, but then expeditionary float. So automating that capability, not only working with the CFT for autonomy to adopt a kit, so to speak, but also allow the current applications of the REBs and other bridging expedition dry support bridges to expand. So looking for opportunities and ideas there. Specifically at different military load classifications, we know our bridges and or our equipment is getting heavier, so we know that's always been a challenge. And then the other big piece of that is autonomy ready, as I talked to a little bit, is really digitizing that backbone. We use JLTV and probably Humvee as bad words now, but they are in our fleet today and probably will be for a while, so let's use the assets we have. So working with CPE autonomy to look at digitizing those backbones and those applications, as we've seen many of our systems and capability done today, is a great idea. Excuse me. And then specifically to train or transition from analog to digital, right? Specifically drive-by-wire, throttle to brake, steering, and then just adding to the sensor suite of capability so it can be autonomous rather than just a point-by-point navigation. So those are the kind of the pieces in the autonomy systems. We also are looking at the contested logistics with joint J-pad systems, which delivers greater, as I talked a little bit about, nautical miles for greater distances, and really automating and then automation of those systems as well for deployments. Command and control, I talked a little bit about predictive logistics. That's a big push, and we'll hear some more about that, of really trying to monitor the condition of our asset, not just predict, but truly capture the demand of the system and the platforms. So if there's ideas there that you have, I think we'll have a couple, not only the 11th Airborne predictive logistics effort that we talked about a little bit, but that'll be another up-and-coming opportunity for you. And then really getting at augmented reality and virtual reality training and repair. So looking for ideas there. There's been some heads-up displays and other capabilities, but looking to optimize that in efficiency for cost and affordability. And then contested logistics, we've got some mobility challenges sometimes, depending on the environment. So puncture-proof tires to some degree has always been in our fleet. We have a lot of tires, obviously with a lot of the wheeled vehicle fleet, so we have a lot of supply. And then the environment, whether it's minus 40, minus 60, for that environment as well is different than the hot environments. And then last but not least, just the space, weight, and power of JPADs to allow further deployment of those systems will be a future opportunity as well. And I think that is my last slide. So just points of contact for us. Pending, I think we'll have the panel up here next, if the panel could come up.
Awesome, gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining me. So I'm Captain Dave Grossman. I'm an active duty Army officer that's stationed here at Stanford, along with Chris Schiaffeletti, most recently coming out of the 75th Ranger Regiment, and then working at the Gordian Knot Center on some of the autonomy and innovation efforts that Chris mentioned earlier. I'll just act as kind of a moderator for this panel, and I know you've already heard from Kyle and Todd, so for Greg and Colonel Conover, gentlemen, if you could just give a brief introduction to the group of who you are and what you're working on, and then we'll go into some questions.
Thanks. All right. So my name is Greg Sassman. I'm the Deputy for Science and Technology at Armament Center. Kyle introduced where I'm from in his first slide. So Armament Center is the systems center that is aligned to AS&A. So we're responsible for the S&T that will go to AS&A from to meet their priorities and what they need. So what we're working on is anything from 6.1 to 6.3 that aligns to Kyle and Todd. Trying to think of where else I want to go with this. I'll leave it there for now.
Good afternoon. So Colonel Drew Conover, I am the Innovation Officer for First Corps. Really, what I focus on in my job is bridging our capability gaps. We've got a requirement to be ready to fight in the Pacific right now, and we have a substantial amount of gaps. And so I'm not living in the space 2 to 3 or 4 years from now. I'm living in the space of right now. What's ready to go and what's ready to get put into our formation. Underneath the Corps, we've got a really wide range of capabilities. So we've got the 25th Infantry Division out of Hawaii operating in the jungle environment. We've got the 11th Airborne Division in Alaska operating in an Arctic environment. We've got the 4th Infantry Division at Fort Carson, which is running the Army's next generation command and control prototype. And then we also have 7th Infantry Division, which is transitioning into a multi-domain command, integrating very long-range fires capabilities, which previously have not been inside of an infantry division. So they're pairing that fires capability with infantry combat power. And so pretty interesting stuff going on all across the Corps.
Awesome. I think, in the first conversation with Todd and Kyle, you mentioned a lot of different demand signals that you guys have kind of across your CBEs of things that you're looking for help with industry. Could you both, and really, Greg, for you as well, drill down on the one area where you have the most need or there's the highest priority or the greatest opportunity for help with industry to help accelerate whatever that demand signal is or what that gap is, just to help prioritize through a lot of the different issues?
All right, great. Yeah, thank you for that. So I don't know if there's just one, right? Like we talked a bit, the breadth of our portfolio allows it to have many different users in the mix. But I think one opportunity that's up and coming is probably advanced manufacturing. Currently, we have the MWMSS Mobile Work Machine Shop Set. That's more of a 3-axis CNC machining capability today. The future of our warfighter has since gone greatly beyond that capability. So I think up and coming, we'll be looking for what future can we put into the warfighter hands to make, BDAR, battle damage assessment and repair parts forward in the battlefield to expedite efforts. So look for that as an opportunity.
Yeah, and I think across the different demand signals that I had talked about, I think that the kind of that affordable and scalable lethality is a big demand signal for us. We've obviously put a lot of time and effort into that common lethality integration kit and the small universal payload interface to really create that space for industry to come in and design payloads and integrate payloads more seamlessly into both autonomous systems and on manned drones as well. So kind of having that ability to have that interface for industry to work towards, have that standard for industry to work towards, I think is somewhere where it gives industry a lot of space to innovate in a way that is that allows us to accelerate that capability, particularly with lethal UAS payloads.
So I didn't brief, so I'm gonna pull two. Apologize for that. The first one being something you've probably heard a number of times, but I think we can do better in a counter UAS gun-based solution that is cheaper. We keep wanting something, and obviously the cost difference right now that has been hitting us is way too large. We need to get after something that's cheaper from our perspective that we can defeat UAS, and I think that's something that's doable. The other one is I'm going to pull the thread a little bit further on what Kyle said because I'm looking at it from an S&T perspective, and particularly within 6.2, all of our munitions are made up of components. So we have fuses and energetics and warheads and airframes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Each of those different components, at least as we've been looking at them now, have been designed for a single use, which obviously costs a lot more money. It also makes it a lot harder for the industrial base to ramp up when we have the need. So if we could relook at how we're looking at all of those munition components from a MOSA perspective so that we can see how we can maybe plug and play them all together, maybe scale up as we get to higher calibers. Something that's a lot more consistent and common across the board so that we can ramp up when we need to. Maybe we can look at a larger industrial base to be able to look at that because now that we have something common, it's easier. But it's maybe the long-term solution while we look at things that we can update the industrial base now. But it's something, at least from an S&T perspective, that I think we need.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. I want to transition briefly to contested logistics a little bit. I think, and looking at you, Colonel Conover, I think for most of us, it's easy for us to imagine as we think about the Indo-PACOM theater, the USARPAC theater, that, it's a difficult problem set. You've got units spread across different island chains, thousands of miles, 2 to 3 week supply times, with an enemy trying to interdict those. Can you help us go a little bit deeper and understand from the operational perspective what that feels like to you, and then maybe if there's any opportunity space or problems that you guys are really trying to struggle with where industry could help?
Yeah, I think what underpins the problem of logistics in the Pacific is the proliferation of armed drones, whether it's ground, sea, air. It is so significant that it has the potential to put at risk everything in terms of the way that we traditionally prosecute operations. And so what are the impacts of that? And I think there's a couple things that we're really leaning in towards, most of which have already been talked about in the panels, though, to account for all of these systems that are in the battle space now, and kind of really all three of the domains. So the first is autonomous resupply systems, whether it's ground-based, air, we are interested in those. If we can make contact, just like the idea of making contact with a robot instead of a human, certainly applies with a resupply platform, whether it's a UAS instead of a helicopter pilot, same thing in the maritime environment. And when you look at distances of these, I mean, it's everything from the close fight of the last tactical miles, we call it in the Army, all the way up into hundreds of miles across the South China Sea. And so there's just tremendous space in that area right now. And we talked about, I know there's a lot of companies working on it, but I think there is still a lot of opportunity there. I think the second one is power generation. Again, already talked about a little bit, but I think from the perspective of logistics, it is, moving to, power generation systems that require less fuel, have onboard storage, and in some cases moving to, fuel cells exclusively, because the ability to push that fuel out to these disparate locations is going to become more difficult, given, as we can really already see in the modern fight in Ukraine. And then I think kind of the third piece of contested logistics that's really important to us is the software perspective of this. And so, the tracking of ammunition, fuel, water, all the commodities you can think of in our supply system, consolidate, and finding ways to consolidate that from the soldier level all the way up to the highest, the higher organizations, up at the divisions and corps like where I sit, so that we have a clear picture at all time, real-time tracking. And from that real-time tracking, as something's expended, automatically triggering a logistical action to resupply that. And I think that, we're talking not only about, automation, but I think we start getting into autonomy there. There are experiments that, that we're leaning into with next generation command and control to address some of this. But I think, once again, there's still space in that area. And where I see a real gap, what I don't see anybody working on is the personnel aspect of that. And so tracking, personnel not only that are on hand, but incoming replacements, casualties, evacuations out of theater. There's a major software component to that, and I'm not seeing a lot of a lot of action in that area, and so I'd offer that up. Thanks.
Thanks so much, sir. We'll be cognizant of time, and I know we're the last thing between everyone and lunch, but we will take a second. If there are any questions from the audience, we've got about 6 or 7 minutes to field any of those before we go into any closing comments.
Hi, good morning. I'm Manveer with an early stage firm called Plug and Play. Before I ask the question, I assume the answer is yes, but I just wanted to clarify it too. When you guys came up with the investment demand signals, did you guys determine market size for each problem that you put on there, or was it much more a need for the Army irrespective of the size of the market? For example, the tire one. If a founder came pitching tires to a VC, the amount of traction they might get is a conversation we can have. So as you guys determined those, was that something you took into account? If so, to what degree? Just curious overall. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good topic, right? So thank you for that. No, we have quite a few what we call PM needs list, and this was kind of chunked or broken down based on USAPAC needs and what we see in those top areas. So not necessarily, but then throughput either. Not to answer your question a little bit more, it wasn't necessarily demand history or quantity necessarily, but true demand needs of current efforts on platforms. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, and I think to kind of build on what Todd was saying, from at least when we looked at from the ammunition energetic side, one thing we tried to look at is kind of where the PMs needed help to accelerate capability. Were there areas within their roadmaps, within their programs, where industry investment can really accelerate our ability to get products to the field faster? So trying to look at ways, and again, kind of autonomy readiness and like enabling that is a really big thing that gets us there a little bit faster. So trying to look at how we can make our programs more autonomy ready in a lot of ways as well as just kind of looking at across the portfolio where industry investment would really complement our portfolio and move things forward faster.
Sorry. Yeah, you guys have all kind of commented on long-range fires. Talking to people in this space and other branches, everyone seems to have a different definition of what that number actually is. Could you guys just add some color to that, please?
Is the question, what do we consider the kind of range of long-range fires? Okay, so I think you're referring just from tying kind of our mission areas in terms of the long-range fires portfolio. And again, when I was trying to say that there's some things that are enablers, I mean, the assured position, navigation, and timing enables long-range effects downrange with even kind of cannon artillery as well. So that's where we kind of looked at it from that perspective, and looking at the technologies that are coming out of our fusing groups in terms of that precision capability at range. So that's why we tied that into kind of that long-range fires user pack demand signal.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's anything beyond cannon artillery, which, you know, really goes about 40 kilometers. But like what I would highlight though is, I mean, we are talking distances of hundreds of miles, firing from one island, you know, a couple 100 miles to get into an engagement area in the sea against a moving maritime target. I mean, these are some of the things that we're looking at here that we see as, you know, imperatives for the Pacific. And so it's substantial distances for sure.
Yeah, I'd like to get your thoughts on how you're working with the Marine Corps, specifically in terms of autonomous aerial resupply. You know, Marine Corps has programs going from 100 pounds all the way to 3,000, 4,000 pounds. We know about some of the extra demand that the Army has to lift 20,000 pounds and move large containers onto shore. But just some thoughts. We had heard earlier that the Army and the Marine Corps decided that the Marine Corps could go lead some of these programs first and the Army would follow. Just an update. How are you thinking about it now?
Yeah, no, we're all in on moving on heavy lift UAS. As a matter of fact, you know, we've got a company here that we're talking to, you know, that we're looking to move over 1,000 pounds. I think right now at the Army level, you know, we're not moving a lot of weight as part of the I don't know if the JTARS program's under your guys' portfolio, but you know, it's at a couple 100 pounds right now, and I think here at the Corps at least, we're trying to push the bounds to get caught up with the Marine Corps or kind of complement their efforts. Because those requirements are absolutely, I mean, it's absolutely a requirement for us right now, and I think we're trying to push, you know, industry to start developing some of those heavier requirements that can meet things at the division and corps level. Because right now, a lot of things in the Army, at least, are kind of really focused at the small unit level, and we've got to, you know, we've got requirements beyond that. So.
Yeah, specifically on JPADS 5 and 10K, we're teaming with the Marine Corps on using that technology beyond what it can deliver today. Right now, we're in a 5 to 15 nautical mile delivery due to air technology. So we're trying to look at enhancing that technology to pinpoint legacy and or systems to upgrade to pinpoint deployments. So yeah, we're working with them.
I think we have time for one more question if there is one.
I'm going to let them do two because so many people raised their hand.
Thank you so much. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for your time. Sean Singleton with Beaton Zone Ventures out of Queensland in Australia, and formerly of DIU, so this is a loaded question. Considering many of the relationships that you covered actually have been nurtured by DIU over the last 10 plus years, how are you working with DIU to go ahead and find solutions to your priority problems?
I can start this. When they help launch, we used to have the ATVS program. Now General Gibbs has it, so good. They helped us launch that program and helped to initiate, just like the Fuse is doing now in the pit, right? Perfect opportunities to help streamline some of the touch points that industry can bring to us sooner to educate. We have requirement challenges on speed. So those have helped educate and taught us a lot what to do and how to do it. So, and we'll continue to do those because those are great touch points, obviously, with this event. So thank you.
Yeah, and I think just building on the relationship with DIU, I think we're trying to get more involved with them. I know myself and the Chief Technology Officer within the CP for Ammunition Energetics, we've tried to reach out more and get more involved in that space. I think there's a lot of opportunity there that may be untapped at the moment.
Yeah, they've helped challenge our acquisition contracting methodology, so that's been great. Think outside the box, so thank you.
And my answer is very similar to Kyle's, at least from Armament Center perspective. We're talking to DIU irregularly. We're working to make that a more regular and a closer relationship because we realize that there's a need there and that would benefit us greatly, but it just hasn't quite happened yet.
Yeah, and I would just say from the Corps, DIU's done a really good job, I think, over the last like 18 months in extending their reach. So they've supported a project for the 11th Airborne Division with a couple UAS systems over the past year. Then they're also integrated with 25th Infantry Division right now on some EW capability or electronic warfare capability.
Awesome. We'll do one last one in the back.
All right. Thank you guys so much for the panel. It's been really helpful. Ryan Condren with Float Air. I'm very new to this space, so hearing what you guys are talking about has been really helpful. I'm realizing I'm going to have to learn a lot of acronyms if I'm going to hang out with you guys. We have two craft designs. One, it's an airship drone hybrid that will pick up 30,000 pounds and 50,000 pounds. I'm very new to the space. I'm curious what size companies you guys look to work with, at what stage, and then we're finding that we're going to have a lot of discussions with the FAA over the next 4 or 5 years. Do you guys help with that?
So I think in terms of what size of companies we work with, it's really across the board. Everything from small, where again we're involved in the Small Business Innovation Research Program, with SIBR companies, all the way up to large primes. So there's not really any size of company that's going to necessarily deter us from wanting to work with you. And I think one of the big avenues, and I'll let Greg kind of can kind of foot stomp a little bit, like the cooperative research and development agreements, CRADAs, are a big avenue right now for companies to share information with government teams and to get on that ground floor and start working with us. So I think that's a really good opportunity for companies as they work with the labs in particular.
Yeah, to hit on the other part of your question is at what stage, really at any stage. So I work S&T, so 6.1 to 6.3, which is basic research up to tech development. We have, and as Kyle said, CRADAs are the perfect approach to be able to work directly with an industry and get that cooperative research agreement that we can start working together, talking and working toward something that's going to be maybe when there's funding available on something else, that's an opportunity to start getting in a little bit more. But I think CRADAs are the right approach.
Awesome, gentlemen.
Warfare, yes, we will work with the FAA, we will work with the FCC, we will work with the NSA. But there's got to be a there. Sorry.
So close. So close.
Okay. Really appreciate it. Obviously, a lot of chance for crosstalk and good follow-ups afterwards. But if you could join me in a round of applause for taking this panel for their time.